It is 35.66 billion shillings. I will not waste the time of the House by saying all the loans, describing them. They're in the schedule you're going to see, but basically that is where the biggest shame that the leader of the majority was speaking to, that we are having money to develop the country, and because of some funny interests, we are where we are. I therefore want to conclude in seconding this by, since the leader of the majority was not in the committee, by thanking the stakeholders who enabled us to come up with this very comprehensive report. And colleagues, we've tried to do a good job. In fact, today we started at 7 a.m. We've just finished. We've tried to do a good job. Where your county doesn't seem to be getting the best, please just agree with us so that we can make progress. I thank you, all of you. And with those remarks, Mr. Speaker, I second.
Honourable Senators, I will now proceed to put the question that the County Government's Additional Locations Bill I proceed to propose the question that the County Government's Additional Locations Bill, Senate Bills number 1, Senator Sifuna.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I will suffer the same incapacity as the leader of majority that, we have not had the benefit of the report of the committee, but Senator Khalwale has attempted to shed some light on everybody's job is clear in the Constitution that certain classifications of road are going to be done by the county government, certain classifications are going to be done by national government. I am very proud as SG of ODM that my party leader and my party has taken a position on this question of RMLF, because we are solid believers and defenders of the Constitution. We believe in devolution. My party leader's position, and which is my position, is that members of the National Assembly has no business. They have no business constructing roads. And if they have a problem, the problem is not with Sifuna. I take my instructions from my boss, my party leader. And as a senator of Nairobi, I have been charged to ensure that we defend devolution at every turn. So that even in that matter that is before the courts, I remember the chair of the Council of Governors, who also happens to be from my party, appeared before the Roads Committee, and he gave us a chronology of this fight. And in his wisdom, he had indicated that in fact they had tried to have conversations with the National Assembly, but those conversations never work. Because I remember when we were doing mediation on the division of revenue, the members of the National Assembly, in very condescending tones, were telling us that we as the senators should go and tell the governors to withdraw the case in court on RMLF. And we agreed with the chair of the Council of Governors as senators that we want that matter to be resolved by the courts once and for all. Because the law is there, the Constitution is there, there is absolutely no reason why we should be fighting about this. And the most callous thing, Honourable Speaker, I have never been a member of the National Assembly, and maybe one day if I will be, maybe this, I don't want to use the word disease, but this attitude maybe will come over me, that somehow they have dissected the populations, they know the people who belong to the national government and the people who belong to the county governments. That, Honourable Speaker, it doesn't matter what prejudice the people suffer, for as long as the National Assembly does not get what it wants, then we can hold the entire thing at ransom. I remember sitting here with those members, I don't want to mention their names, but they know themselves. Honourable Speaker, they told us in no uncertain terms that if they don't get RMLF, we will not get division of revenue. And I hear that I've told Senator Khalwale's committee the same thing, that in fact, if they don't get these RMLF funds, they don't care whether CHPs are being paid. I am very happy that you are able as a committee to distinguish these things, to separate them, and let that controversy over RMLF be resolved in the courts in accordance with the law. But really, it is very callous, even for the members of the National Assembly, the 17 of them from Nairobi. I don't think that they would feel proud that CHPs, the 7,400 CHPs in Nairobi, can go without pay for all these months just because they want to continue to build roads. Honorable Speaker, I want therefore to say that we hope that that controversy is resolved. As people who understand the Constitution and people who understand devolution, we know that the Council of Governors and this Senate are on the right side. I don't think, Khalwale, we are the enemies of devolution. We have stood very firm on the floor of this House in our committees, even when we were doing mediation on division of revenue, to make it very clear to the National Assembly that, first of all, we are not enemies of the National Assembly, but we have an oath that we swore on this Constitution to defend county governments and their interests. And if the Constitution says a certain role is to be executed by the devolved units, we have a responsibility to defend that position. So when we say that it is our belief, both as a Senate, as a Senator of Nairobi, as SG of ODM, as a member of ODM, that RMLF should be fully devolved, the entire amount should go to the county governments, it is because that is what the law says. Honorable Speaker, if you look at the schedule, the first schedule, you will see that for us in Nairobi, really, we were concerned with only two issues. Number one is, of course, that issue of the road maintenance levy. We have a budget of about 390 million Kenya shillings in the supplementary budget for 2024-2025 for maintenance of roads. Those of you who have been moving around our estates in Nairobi, and I can see the Deputy Speaker looking at me because he's not very happy with the situation of the roads in Nairobi. And I am sure all of you have problems. You go to places in Kilimani, you go to Isili, everywhere our roads are in pathetic shape. And we were hoping that this impasse is resolved because it is also acknowledged that we need the resources to be able to do these roads. And therefore, we hope that it will be resolved as soon as possible. But you can see on that schedule, the first schedule, Honorable Speaker, we have the 224 million Kenya shillings, which is sufficient to cover the stipend of 2,500 shillings for 7,464 CHPs for 12 months. And then there is an amount that has been allocated there for basic salary arrears for county government health workers. And the majority leader, when he was here, he spoke about these health workers always showing up at our gate here, Honorable Speaker. And last week, there was such an event, just before we broke for recess, and you dispatched me and the Senator for Meru to go and speak to them. And I was very happy that we are not just paying lip service. The majority leader was not here. We were very proud that as a House, under the leadership of the Speaker, specific instructions were issued to the Committee on Health to bring all those stakeholders on board to be able to have that conversation. And I was speaking that day, I was not even sure, I was not aware, Speaker, that the Committee of Health of this House, that same day, had the ministry before them, and the chair, I have not seen him, but I remember seeing on the news that they gave certain deadlines to the ministry to be able to clear arrears of salaries for these county health workers, and including, what are they called? Yes, the UHC workers. So I am very happy, Majority Leader, that as a House, there are things we are doing in order to assuage the situation there, and we are not just paying lip service. Honorable Speaker, of course, I think there was an agreement with the judiciary, the courts, and therefore you might not find allocations of money out of court fines for Nairobi, Honorable Khalwale. But I agree with you that there needs to be greater transparency in disclosures from Treasury on amounts of money that are collected in terms of court fines originating out of enforcement of county legislation. If you look across the country, of course, Nairobi is notorious. The number of people who are arrested on a daily basis for violation of bylaws, and then even today, it is full of people who are being charged with various violations, and it is true that we need greater disclosures from Treasury on these amounts. So therefore, Speaker, with all those remarks, I will be hoping that we will have view of the report to see how the other matters have been treated. But it is very, very unfair. I honestly believe it is very unfair that we have kept counties waiting or awaiting these resources for such a long time just because of a dispute amongst leaders. At the end of the day, I remember during the mediation on DORA, we agreed on certain basic things. That number one, there doesn't exist a Kenyan who belongs to the national government and one who belongs to the county governments. And the number two, most times if there is a bridge over a river that has collapsed due to floods, the ordinary user of that bridge does not care who comes to repair it or where the sources of those funds are, where the funds are going to come from. They just want the bridge repaired. So as leaders, really, we should not have a situation where a standoff between the Council of Governors and the National Assembly results in such a situation, and including the many donor-funded projects, especially because of happenings that are going on in the US, this supporting healthcare in our counties. So with those very many remarks, Honorable Speaker, I want to support the report of the committee, and I hope that there will be resolution on the remaining or pending matters to do with road maintenance levy fund. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Senator Murango.
Asante sana Mstahiki Speaker. Kwanza ningetaka kwanza kushukuru kamati ya fedha kwa kazi nzuri waliofanya, lakini na maneno mawili tu ya kusema. Kwanza niseme ya kwamba adui mkubwa wa ugatuzi ni wale waliokaa katika bunge la kitaifa. Na Mswahili husema kimembacho kikivunja nafuu kwa mchukuzi. Uongozi wa bunge la kitaifa unafaa kumakinika kuhakikisha kwamba tunapopitisha, kwa sababu sisi ndio walinzi wa ugatuzi, tunapopitisha miswanda hapa si lazima kuwe na vuta ni kuvute, kwa sababu fedha ambazo zinazokuja hazikuji kwetu kama seneta, zinaenda katika kufaidi wa Kenya. Na kwa hivyo ningetaka kuwasuta kwa hilo, na niseme ya kwamba kucheleweshwa kwa pesa mali zimefika. Mstahiki Speaker, mua ukipewa kimbogoyo mzee aliyozeeka kama zawadi na kuanga ni matusi. Pesa tulio nayo siku ya leo, tunayopitisha siku ya leo, imechelewesha kwenda kule kwa sababu ya vuta ni kuvute ambazo hazina maana. Ingawa tunafuraha kwa sababu kama wale maofisa wa ugani ambayo wanafanya kazi ngumu katika gatuzi zetu wataweza kupata pesa zao, kwa sababu naona kama Kirinyaga kuna milioni 36 na kwa muda ambao hawakuwa wamelipwa. Ni kwamba hakukuwa na maana yoyote ya kuwachelewesha kiwango hicho na kazi ngumu wanaofanya kule mashinani. Mstahiki Speaker, wengi wanaenda mguu kama mawakala wa ng'ombe, wengine hawana hata usafiri kuhakikisha kwamba afya inatunzwa katika sehemu zile za kule mashinani. Kwa hivyo nimesema ya kwamba kuteseka huko kote ni kwa sababu ya jitihada ambazo zilifanywa na wabunge wa bunge la kitaifa na kuchelewesha miswanda ambayo tunapitisha hapa. Mstahiki Speaker, tumepewa kazi moja muhimu sana, kuwa walinzi wa ugatuzi. Lakini mlinzi mpaka pia pewe silaha, kwa sababu bunge la seneti limekuwa likimbweka ya kutosha. Nadhani wakati wa kuuma umefika, ili wajue ya kwamba pia sisi sio vikaragosi na wanasesere wa siasa. Sisi pia ni seneti na pia jukumu lazima tuhakikishe. Nadhani kuna venye wanatuchukulia kwa urahisi kama bei ya chumvi, kwamba miswanda yote tukipitisha hapa tukipeleka kule, hata ambao hawanja soma unasikia wakiongea mitaani na kupinga ile miswanda. Jitihada mpaka tufanye ili tueleweke na tuheshimike. Mstahiki Speaker, nikimalizia, ni jambo la kushangaza sana kwamba vita imekuja kwa sababu ya pesa ambazo zinafaa kwenda kuangalia masuala ya barabara mashinani. Na wenyewe wanajua vizuri, ukiangalia vizuri ni kwamba barabara zimegawa kutoka yenye inaenda kwa Kenya, zenye zilikuwa zinashirikiwa na Kera, zenye zinatengenezewa zinatunzwa na kura, na pia katika katuzi zetu. Wakati wametoa zile pesa ambazo zinafaa kwenda kuangalia masuala ya barabara, hiyo ndio inafanya katika kaunti nyingi unapata barabara zinakaa kama mahandaki, zimechimbika, pesa za kufanya hiyo kazi hakuna. Lakini lazima pia tunaongea ukweli kwamba wakati sisi tunapigania kama siku ya leo, kwa sababu saa hii Seneta yote ambaye ako hapa akikutana na gavana wake atapigwa pambaja kwa kazi nzuri ambao, kwa sababu leo tunakuja kupitisha pesa itaenda mashinani. Tukimaliza leo, kesho tutakuwa ni maadui wakubwa pia wa mangavana ambao tunatetea siku ya leo. Utasikia kwamba anapiga kelele, hajui kazi yake. Tunajua kazi yetu, lakini kesho itakuwa tujui kazi yetu. Nataka niseme kwamba venye tumembweka na kulinda kuhakikisha kwamba mangavana amepata pesa, tutambweka hivyo hivyo pesa zikitumika visivyo kama bunge la Seneti. Asante sana Mr. Speaker.
Senator Onyonka.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. One of the points I wanted to make, that because of the inevitable delay in the report being ready, the report which was done by the committee is actually much better. Colleagues will receive it because it clearly demarcates the schedules, the money from donor funding, conditional grants, and all other monies that need to go to every county. Number two, there is also clarity what every county has gotten in terms of donor funding, the FLOCA money, and all these other monies which have been in the program. Mr. Speaker, I would like to thank the Majority Leader for his comments, and my friend, my brother, Honorable Boni Halwale, who we woke up at 7 o'clock in the morning to go and make sure that this report is done. Mr. Speaker, this matter of dealing with the road maintenance levy fund is a problem. And it's a problem that has held us back until this time. I believe that the decision to allow the courts determine for us this matter in finality makes sense. Number two, Mr. Speaker, I would like to also say that I'm actually very happy that the committee, for the first time, with clarity, I remember, Speaker, we've come into this house and we've always asked that give us the amounts every county is getting in figures and from what agency, so that then, Mr. Speaker, we can explain to our people what needs to be done. I'm sure this House is aware that governors have already pronounced themselves. In fact, they were giving us 14 days so that they can make sure that this document is tabled here so that we can approve the money. My honest observation is that yes, just as much as governors are our partners and we really want them to succeed, and we want to make sure that the funds are utilized well and effectively, we are beginning to feel that our governors are not giving us the best. Mr. Speaker, if you look at the audit discussions that have been taking place for the last 2 weeks, you'll realize that there's a lot of misappropriation, waste, and misuse of public funds. Audits are not up to date. In fact, Mr. Speaker, because I'm also in a position to know that the audits which we did the whole of last year, we are actually up to 2024-25. There are about 6 counties that their books have never been audited for the last 4 years. That's what they're struggling with. My feeling is that we would want to request our governors to use the money prudently, make sure that they are responsible, reduce the noise, the political noise that you have in the county governments, because Kenyans just want service delivery. Mr. Speaker, Kenyans just want nothing else but to give them service delivery, make sure that we pay our nurses and doctors, make sure that our teachers are paid on time, make sure that capitation money arrives in our schools on time, make sure that money for road construction arrives on time. If that happens, I saw yesterday, Mr. Speaker, where there was a debate, public debate as to why Kenyans are hungry. Angry. I don't think Kenyans are angry. Kenyans just want service. University students want their money to be available for their education. Teachers want their money for capitation to be available. Those who need to be promoted, promote them. Community health workers, people who are playing a very, very services within our country, medical services are actually given first priority. You find that we are not able to compensate them, pay their allowances. As you had the Secretary General, ODM, my leader, Honorable Sifuna, talk, he has said here very clearly, for the last 3 months, we've been having members from the medical fraternity coming to the gates of the Senate to make noise why we are not paying them, why we are not honoring their CBAs. the agreements, which some of them were signed 2-3 years ago. So, Mr. Speaker, I would like to say that as a committee, we appreciate the support that we have received from this House. As a committee, I think the team has worked diligently. I want to thank my chair, Honorable Roba, who has really pushed. While he's aware, we've been having Honorable Halwale with his experience and energy to hold in brief. I think we've presented to this House a report that is believable, that is factual. Every county, the money that has been given has been stated, whether it is for health, whether it is for agriculture, whether it's for roads. And I would like to say, Mr. Speaker, that the teams that were looking at the figures and the amounts and the amount of consternation it was raising. There were many issues that we dealt with, and we felt that because we don't have time, there was no need for us to have disagreements in terms of what the numbers were and what they were not. The only thing I want to remind many here is that last year there was a group of about 18 counties that were given money for the industrial parks, and we waited. I am happy that Kisii County, for example, Mr. Speaker, has also now been given the money for the industrial park, the money which was allocated for cancer as a special project has also been allocated. So I am positive and hopeful that we will continue working hard in this House. We will be standing our ground. I am happy that the senators, many senators in this House are now seized of the fact that we must be the people who are going to defend devolution. We must be the people who are going to make sure that when the money goes to the county governments, let us make sure, Mr. Speaker, that this money does as the service that is supposed to do. So that I am happy that the amount is about 50 billion, which is not small money. I believe that we will be able to finish the county aggregation and industrial parks. I believe there are many issues coming. I want to raise this issue, Mr. Speaker. I want to raise this issue, Mr. Speaker, before I forget. Honorable Halwale, I want to tell you that we need to engage our colleagues in the National Assembly to realize that they have to make a decision whether they are going to become the tenderpreneurs in government projects and deals, or whether they are going to serve the public in making sure that the money arrives at the county governments and their constituencies. There's a lot going on in our counties. There's a lot going on in our sub-counties. And Mr. Speaker, there's a lot going on in our sub-counties. And Mr. Speaker, my honest observation is that unless we begin to become prudent, and we need to deliver services to our people. But otherwise, I want to say that the last item, which again, Mr. Speaker, you had Honorable Halwale mention, is the fact that yes, fines are collected by the courts, and then these fines are supposed to be transferred to the consolidated fund. What we realized for the last 3 years that we've been looking at these figures, we have actually never had anybody say whether there was an audit done on these fines, whether the money is still being domesticated at the judiciary, or whether the money was transferred to the consolidated fund and budgeted for other purposes. I believe this would be a good call, because even if this money may not be so much, any money right now is needed in our republic. And I hope that we will continue to make sure that we maintain prudency and dignity in making sure that our resources are utilized effectively, fairly, equitably, and prudently. And this issue, another matter that I would like to finally engage in and explain to my colleagues in this House, we have been conducting audit report, and I would wish that my colleagues deeply look through, particularly this Senate. It is your responsibility to try and save the county governments, because they are really in trouble. Finally, we need to come up and solve this problem of where all governors, and indeed they are correct, that there is always late disbursement of funds from the exchequer. That matter must be sorted out, because, Mr. Speaker, anytime you delay payments of a trader or a business person who was a supplier, naturally you understand what that means. It means that his loans are either not going to be serviced. You're going to find some of these people have been auctioned in several counties. Some of these contractors have died, and you know, Mr. Speaker, governors are no longer paying pending bills. Because now they're paying for the companies that they're using to do business for themselves. Second, and I hope that it will be expedited immediately so that the money can be sent to the county governments. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Now, Honorable Senators, for clarity and to guide the debate, we are on the second reading of the bill. Therefore, your debate should be based on the bill as opposed to a report. Because the few senators who've contributed, they've actually not gone into the bill itself. So kindly base your comments on the bill, because we are debating a bill that has come for the second reading. Senator Kathuri.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, also for giving me this opportunity to comment on this very important bill touching on actually the corner of our work to make sure that devolution works in this country, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this bill is actually making provisions for the transfer of conditional allocations from national government's share of revenue and from development partners, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as you have guided, we are actually supposed to look into the content of the bill. And Mr. Speaker, first of all, is also to make a concern that these disbursements are coming towards the end of the financial year, Mr. Speaker. We are entering the fourth quarter next month, and that is, we have really drained the counties from spending this money to the people that we represent. Mr. Speaker, I want to comment on the county aggregations and industrial parks, which 19 counties are benefiting from this fund, Mr. Speaker. And if we go by the figures, which is 105,263,158 per every the 19 counties, Mr. Speaker. But my concern also is whether also the counties have matched this amount, because the counties were to give out 250 million, and then the national government was to give 250 million to make it 500 million. So my concern is whether also the 19 counties, how far is this amount? And I remember reasoning to one of the programs in Meru FMs. There's 105, then it means that project can be almost now, if all the other monies were released, we should be at almost 75%, Mr. Speaker. Another issue, Mr. Speaker, is the CHPs. And as my colleague, the Senator for Nairobi, has well spoken, that you sent us to talk to the CHPs when he came at the gate of the Senate, Mr. Speaker. And I'm happy that you committed the Committee of Health to work on this matter. And Mr. Speaker, maybe in the next after recess, we will need to know the progress from the chair of the Health Committee, because, Mr. Speaker, it becomes very disheartening that citizens of this country, this youth, can work for us and all for our parents, for our children, for all of us, the population of Kenya, and then they are not able to get the money and then once we dispense, transmit them to the county governments so that also they can be paid. Again, also, Mr. Speaker, is also to ask myself, are the county governments also giving also their part of the bargain? Because they are sharing almost 50-50 with the national treasury. So my concern also is whether the counties are able also to match this money so that the CHPs can get their allocation, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the elephant on this bill is this schedule for the RMLA fund, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, when I served in the National Assembly, where Senator Sifuna doesn't know what happens there, Mr. Speaker, we used to have all the allocations. There was allocation for Kera, for Kura, for Kena. I know also the percentages, and also there was also allocation for county roads, Mr. Speaker. How the National Assembly, the 13th Parliament, has decided not to release this money to the county governments is a shock to me, Mr. Speaker. Because I remember actually 10% of this fund was going to the counties. Because we have county roads. The road going to my house is a county road. Mr. Speaker, as we speak, that road is very dilapidated because it's just from the highway, which is under Class B, under Kena, and then going to my house, you use now it's the county road. It cannot be funded by Kera. So if this money cannot get to the counties, Mr. Speaker, then it means I will never get to my house after these rains, Mr. Speaker. So it should be, I think, the first priority even from our courts, even though we don't direct the courts on what to do, Mr. Speaker, some matters are of national interest. So, Mr. Speaker, I wish our courts could really decide on this matter once and for all so that this money can go to the counties to make our own. And when members of parliament start these I don't want to say marking is because I want to use parliamentary language, Mr. Speaker, as much as possible. When they go and make these decisions, looking at their personal benefits, as not looking at the entire picture, Mr. Speaker. Like Meru, for example, we have 284 million, which should go to Meru. And this, because we have 9 constituencies, every constituency can benefit from approximately that million per constituency, Mr. Speaker. And this is good money for those roads because you need just to grain and gravel, Mr. Speaker. So I think the National Assembly should stop drilling devolution. Mr. Honorable Senator Karware said that we have 3 enemies of devolution: the National Assembly, the Senate, and the county governments themselves. Mr. Speaker, I want to exonerate myself from his statement that, Mr. Speaker, I am a true defender of devolution. And when matters touching on devolution, especially on mere matters, even come to this floor or even outside this floor, Mr. Speaker, I'm the first defender, Mr. Speaker. And my colleagues know my position. When I decide the mayor should work, I mean it. And I usually go to the best I can so that I can see or I can feel that the mayor is working. I'm a very happy person, Mr. Speaker. Even though you are taken to court, I want to digress for 1 minute, Mr. Speaker. But when you yourself, the Speaker of the Senate, your petition, there was a petition to the High Court, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank you because you really stood the ground of the Senate and said once a governor is impeached, she will remain impeached, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Your office, and also the clerks of it, because I know the Senate put a lot of effort on this matter. And Mr. Speaker, Senate has now been respected. Let me tell you for three honorable senators, the Senate has been respected because the decision that the Senate made has been upheld. And therefore, when I sometimes see senators trying to, I think, to play around with some decisions made by the Senate, I really feel for us, Mr. Speaker, because our house shouldn't be